You've probably heard this stat before: 70% of lottery winners go broke. It gets repeated everywhere: articles, podcasts, your uncle at Thanksgiving. It's fake. Completely made up. The organization it's credited to has publicly said, "We never said that, we can't confirm it, we don't know where it came from." And yet, here's the part that should actually worry you: the real numbers, the ones nobody quotes because they're less dramatic, are still bad. Real winners, real court records, still going bankrupt at rates far higher than normal people. Just not for the reason you think. That's the theme of this entire video. The stories we tell about money and the brain are usually wrong, but the real explanation underneath them is even stranger than the myth. Your brain has 3 layers working against your bank account right now. One is older than civilization. One was installed in your head before you turned 7 years old, without your permission. And one was built on purpose, this year, by people whose entire job is to find the crack in your willpower. By the end of this video, you'll know all 3, and you'll know exactly where the lottery number actually lands. Let's get into it. Okay, so here's what almost everyone gets wrong about being bad with money. We treat it like a willpower problem. If I just had more discipline, I'd save more, like money management is a character trait you either have or don't. But that explanation falls apart the second you look at the data. Brilliant people, doctors, engineers, even actual lottery winners holding millions of dollars, make the exact same money mistakes as everyone else, over and over. If this were really about intelligence or discipline, smart people would just automatically be rich. They're not. So something else is going on, and it's not one thing, it's 3 things, stacked on top of each other. There's the ancient wiring you were born with. There's the emotional programming you picked up as a kid, usually from one specific memory you don't even consciously remember. And there's the modern world, which has gotten terrifyingly good at finding both of those weak spots and pressing on them, on purpose, every single day. Most people only ever hear about layer 1, the idea that your brain is wired for scarcity, and that's about it. That's true, but it's the boring 10% of the story. The other 2 layers are where the real damage happens, and almost nobody talks about them. So that's where we're spending most of this video. Let's start with the oldest layer, but I promise we'll move fast, because the interesting part isn't the wiring itself, it's what happens when it gets stressed. 30,000 years ago, food showed up unpredictably. No fridge, no salary, no guarantee tomorrow would bring anything at all. So the brain developed one rule: when resources appear, grab them, now, because they might not come again. That rule kept your ancestors alive. It's also why a limited time offer, or a notification that says only 2 left, hits something primal in you. Your brain genuinely cannot tell the difference between that and a herd of animals walking past camp. That part you've probably heard before. Here's the part you haven't. There's a well-known study where researchers tested the thinking ability of sugarcane farmers in India, same farmers, tested twice. Once right before harvest, when money was tight. Once right after, when they'd just been paid. Before payday, their performance on basic thinking and problem-solving tasks dropped by an amount equivalent to losing somewhere around 10 to 13 IQ points. After harvest, same people, same intelligence, scores went right back up. Same brain. Same person. The only thing that changed was financial stress. And brain scans back this up directly. Under financial scarcity, activity actually increases in the parts of your brain that evaluate immediate rewards, and decreases in the parts responsible for long-term planning. Your brain isn't broken when money is tight. It's temporarily reallocating its own power supply toward surviving today, and away from planning for next year. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is the part that flips the usual story on its head. The same researchers who ran that farmer study also found something most people would never guess: people under financial scarcity often make more careful, more rational decisions than people who aren't, not less. They track prices more closely. They juggle trade-offs more precisely. They're not careless. Their problem isn't bad judgment, it's that all of that intense focus on the immediate crisis eats up every spare bit of mental bandwidth, leaving nothing left over for anything outside the emergency. Job training, long-term planning, comparing loan offers, there's simply no fuel left in the tank for it. So scarcity doesn't make you dumb. It makes you laser-focused on the wrong time horizon. That's a completely different problem, and it needs a completely different fix. Now here's a layer almost nobody talks about, and it might explain more of your money habits than anything else in this video. Financial psychologists call it a money script. It's basically a belief about money that got installed in your brain in early childhood, completely unconsciously, and has been quietly running your financial decisions ever since, without you ever examining it. There are 4 basic types. See if one of these sounds familiar. Money avoidance, the belief that money is somehow bad, or that you don't really deserve to have much of it. Money worship, the belief that more money will finally fix everything, that happiness is just one paycheck away. Money status, where your sense of self-worth gets quietly tied to your net worth. And money vigilance, constant anxiety and secrecy about money, even when you're objectively fine. Here's the part that should genuinely surprise you: these beliefs usually trace back to one single moment. Researchers call it a financial flashpoint, a specific childhood memory involving money that you may not even consciously remember, but that locked in a belief you've carried for decades. One of the researchers who discovered this pattern tells a story about his own grandfather. During the Great Depression, his grandfather lost everything when his bank failed. One afternoon. That's all it took. And for the rest of his life, he lived into his 90s, that man never put a single dollar back into a bank account again. 6 decades of financial behavior, permanently shaped by one event he probably thought about every single time he handled cash. That's not a willpower problem. That's a flashpoint. And almost everyone has one, whether it's that dramatic or much quieter, a parent arguing about bills, a moment of shame at a checkout counter, a relative who said money changes people. It got filed away as a rule, and your adult brain has been quietly obeying it ever since. Okay, layer 1 is ancient, layer 2 is childhood, layer 3 is happening to you right now, on purpose, built by people who study exactly what we just talked about. Here's something wild: spending money doesn't just feel uncomfortable, it activates the same part of your brain that processes physical pain and disgust, a region called the insula. That's not a figure of speech. Functional brain scans show it lighting up the moment you're asked to overpay for something, the exact same neural alarm that fires when you smell something rotten. And once you know that, all kinds of design choices suddenly make sense. There's something researchers call the new banknote effect. People spend old, crumpled bills faster, almost like they're trying to get rid of them, while a crisp, brand new bill triggers more of that spending pain to give up. Cash, in general, makes that pain region fire harder, and the effect gets stronger the more money is involved. Which is exactly why cash, for all its inconvenience, is actually a built-in financial brake. But that's exactly the brake the modern world has been engineering you out of for the last 20 years. The less friction there is in paying, counting bills versus tapping a phone, the less pain your brain registers, and the more you spend. That's not an accident. That's the entire business model behind one-click ordering and saved card details. And here's the escalation almost nobody mentions: tap to pay doesn't just numb the pain of spending for some people, it can flip it into something closer to a small reward. The ouch of paying becomes a tiny ooh. Credit cards take this even further, and in a way that's genuinely 2 separate tricks stacked together. Most people assume cards just dull the pain of paying, they release the brake. True. But research on credit card spending shows something else happening at the same time. Cards also seem to independently activate the brain's reward circuitry. In other words, it's not just removing resistance. It's actively stepping on the gas. Now let's talk about why limited time offers and surprise discounts work better than predictable loyalty programs of equal value, because this connects directly back to that ancient layer 1 wiring. For decades, scientists believed dopamine was your brain's pleasure chemical. They were wrong. Dopamine is the wanting chemical, the anticipation, the craving, the chase. And here's the detail that explains almost every modern spending trap: dopamine spikes highest not when you get a reward, but when that reward is uncertain. A guaranteed reward, no matter how big, produces less dopamine than a small, surprising one. That's why an unpredictable flash sale pulls at you harder than a guaranteed discount of the same size, even though logically they're worth the same. Casinos figured this out before anyone had a name for it. There's an effect called the near miss. Almost winning lights up nearly the same reward circuitry in your brain as actually winning. It's why so close outcomes keep people playing, and it has a quiet financial cousin in everyday life, the trade that almost worked, the side hustle that almost broke even. Your brain treats those near misses as something worth chasing again, instead of evidence to walk away. But here's the one that genuinely disturbed me when I found it. On multi-line slot machines, there's a documented phenomenon called a loss disguised as a win. Here's how it works: you bet, say, 80 cents across several lines. You win back 65. You actually lost 15 cents. But the machine plays the same celebratory sound, the same flashing lights, the same you win animation it would for an actual win. Your brain can't tell the difference. Studies show players walk away from these sessions remembering far more wins than they actually had. Now hold that idea for 1 second, because we're about to see exactly where else that trick shows up, somewhere you've definitely encountered this week. You know that little banner that says, "You're $12 away from free shipping?" 40, or the rewards app that congratulates you for saving $40 on a purchase you weren't planning to make. Or the credit card statement that proudly tells you how many points you earned this month, without ever mentioning what those points actually cost you in interest. That's the exact same mechanic as the slot machine. You technically spent more money to win the discount. The app celebrates anyway. Your brain logs it as a win, not a loss, because the lights flashed and the notification felt good. Multiply that by every checkout page you've used this year, and you start to see why "I don't even know where my money goes" is such a common feeling. It's not a mystery. It's design. Let's go back to that grandfather for a second, because I think almost everyone has a smaller version of this story somewhere in their own life. Maybe nobody in your family lost their savings in a bank collapse. But maybe you remember a parent's face when a bill came in the mail. Maybe you remember being the kid who couldn't go on the school trip because of money, and quietly deciding that money was something dangerous, or something you'd never let control you again, and then spending the next 20 years either hoarding it out of fear, or spending it the second it arrives, just to make the discomfort go away. That's a money script in action. It's not weakness. It's a rule your 7-year-old brain wrote to protect you, that your adult brain never got the memo to update. Remember that 70% statistic from the start of the video? Here's what actually happened. Back in the early 2000s, a financial education organization ran a roundtable discussion about sudden wealth, and somewhere in that conversation, someone apparently floated the number 70%. It got picked up by major news outlets, repeated for 20 years, and the organization it's credited to has since gone on record saying, "That number isn't ours, we can't verify it, and we don't know where it actually came from." A statistic, born from a guess in a meeting, treated as gospel for 2 decades. But here's the twist: real court records tell a real story, just a less dramatic one. In Illinois, out of 156 lottery winners who won $50,000 or more over a 15-year period, 44 of them filed for bankruptcy within 5 years. That's roughly 28%, not 70%, but still dramatically higher than the general population. Winners are also more likely to be targeted by family members for money, more likely to be defrauded, and more likely to experience relationship strain than people who never won anything at all. So the myth was wrong on the number, but right on the pattern. A sudden windfall doesn't erase the 3 layers we just talked about, it just hands them an enormous amount of fuel to work with. The ancient brain treats a windfall like found food: grab it now. The childhood money script gets activated harder than ever. And every frictionless, dopamine-friendly spending trap in the modern world is suddenly aimed at someone with millions of dollars instead of 40. That's not a willpower failure. That's 3 systems, working exactly as wired, at the worst possible scale. So here's everything in one sentence: you're not bad with money because you're weak. You've got an ancient brain reacting to scarcity, a childhood belief running in the background you've never examined, and a modern world specifically engineered to exploit both. That's 3 layers, and you can't fix what you can't see. So here's one move for each layer. For the ancient brain, when you're financially stressed, recognize that you're in tunnel vision mode and avoid big money decisions in that exact window if you possibly can. Wait for a calmer day. For the childhood layer, spend 5 honest minutes thinking about your own financial flashpoint. The memory where money first felt scary, shameful, or magical. You can't rewrite a rule you've never actually read. And for the modern layer, literally add friction back in. Delete a saved card. Use cash for the spending category that tempts you most. And the next time an app celebrates you for saving money, pause for 2 seconds and ask whether you just won something or whether you just experienced a very well-designed loss. None of this requires more discipline. It requires knowing which of the 3 systems is actually steering in the moment, because once you can name it, you can finally stop fighting your own brain and start working with it. So tell me honestly, which of the 4 money scripts sounds like you? Avoidance, worship, status, or vigilance? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and I'm genuinely curious how this splits across everyone watching. If this gave you even one thing you didn't know walking in, hit subscribe, because next week, I'm covering the flip side, the specific habits wealthy people use to make all 3 of these systems work for them instead of against them. You don't want to miss that one. Now go look at your last 10 purchases and tell me how many of them were actually wins. Disclaimer. The content provided on this channel is for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, legal, or tax advice. All opinions, analyses, and statements expressed are based on personal experience, personal research, and publicly available information and are subject to change without notice. No guarantee is made regarding the accuracy, completeness, or reliability of any information presented. Investing in stocks, cryptocurrencies, ETFs, or any other financial instruments involves substantial risk and may result in the partial or complete loss of capital. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Nothing on this channel should be interpreted as a recommendation, solicitation, or endorsement to buy or sell any securities or financial products. All investment decisions are made solely at your own risk and responsibility. Viewers should conduct their own independent research and consult with a licensed financial advisor, tax professional, or legal advisor before making any financial decisions. The creator of this channel assumes no liability for any financial losses, damages, or other consequences arising directly or indirectly from the use of the information provided in this content.